something that he let me into. Not every patient, not every family allows us into their world to help us understand how each small decision as a doctor that I make can impact his family, can impact his relationships. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. I'm going to be inviting Karthik and Antara in for a conversation to share a little bit more. I want to share with all of you that um, we lost Mr. Iyer in January of this year. But he's very much a presence in my mind always. He's someone whose grace and dignity and resilience in the way he faced it has always pushed me to be someone who's looking for better solutions for him and his family. And I owe all of that to him. And, I want to say thank you to Karthik and Antara for joining us today. I'm going to share a picture of Britannia's birthday. And this is representative of how Mr. Iyer and Karthik and Antara have always tried to make sure that despite the limitations of breathlessness, of requiring oxygen, of limited mobility, as life shrank in size, it did not shrink in terms of how one could celebrate it. So it exemplifies that line from Anand that you mentioned, Bhavana. Zindagi badi honi chahiye. And so with that, I would like to invite Karthik and Antara to come and maybe share a little bit before we can chat a little further and explore a few more of these issues with how they dealt with, how they adjusted to life with COPD.
Uh, Good evening and namaste, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Bhatt, for for being with us, for taking us through, the thick and thin of life. And I would like to say that, I would like to recall this incident where I was in Bombay, and I think it was a day before Dr. Bhatt's birthday, and I think I had to catch a flight in about one and a half hour. I was on the way to the airport, and my dad suddenly calls and says, "Get a card for Dr. Bhatt." I don't know how you will do it. You land late. You get into the flight only after picking up a card, and that's the kind of
Bond we have.
respect and bond we have for Dr. Bhatt. Yes, I think. I was. It was about 12, 13 years back when Dad was diagnosed with COPD, and he was a very very strong person, I must say, coping with COPD for 14 plus years. I don't know if any of us can do it. And yes, a very very inspirational person. He made us strong, especially the last 5 6 years. If somebody has been able to teach us how to be patient, how to get good at multitasking, how to not really let your emotions overrule what you're doing. I think it's him. uh, he's made us really strong, and I'm really proud to have a dad like that. So I would like to, that's basically I would like to start with this conversation. And yeah, over to you, doctor. Would you like to say something? I'm sure.
He's a hero. He still is.
So I wanted to ask you, Karthik and Antara. I know that when you guys got married at that time, Mr. Raj was he had a few exacerbations on and off, but there was a lot that he was able to do on his own. He was a lot more independent. Um, and over time, gradually things changed, and he required oxygen longer and longer. And then he started requiring assistance. And I know that for you, that was a big shift, Karthik, because it also started meaning that there were changes that you were having to think about with your work, and there were changes that you had to think about, Antara, as well. So, how did you guys go through this process of coming together as a couple, and also understanding how you would balance out the roles that you have with each other while taking care of dad?
Well, Dr. Bhatt, this situation did come. I mean, the situation that you're referring to, this was a situation that arose about 5 6 years back. We got married 7 years ago, and first one year was uh,
Okay.
was
Was
okay. He
okay.
was active. He was moving around with his concentrator, going, meeting people, going for his
Yeah.
rehab back. But there was a time when he had a very bad attack of breathlessness, and we had to put him in the hospital. And once he came back, that's when the slope gradually started coming down. And my job, I'm sure a lot of people would agree. I had a job which had a lot of traveling. I mean, I had a job which included traveling almost 15 to 20 days in a month, and that's the first thing that struck me hard. And I was like, and I was not really in a position to change my job because there's a lot of finances involved, and I wanted a job that can pay me well. Antra, luckily at that time, was doing a course. She was studying, and she had some time with her. So we sat together, me, my mom, Antra. We sat together, and we kind of understood the amount of time that he would be expecting from us. At those stages, there's a lot of expectation that they don't really talk about.
Exactly.
They have a lot of expectations. They want us to spend a lot of time with them because they're very unsure. There's a lot of fear that sinks, that seeps in. But he never expressed this. But we realized that somewhere he wants the time from us. And time was, yeah, he wanted the time, but there was a lot of dependency. He needed a lot of help. So I somehow tried to control my travel, tried to do things which I can do sitting from home or sitting from Bangalore. Try to give him that time. Antra would spend a lot of time with him, talk to him about a whole lot of things. He felt good when somebody sat with him and spoke to him. Mom would, again, mom, with her
Travels.
schedule, she runs an NGO, so back and forth. She would spend a lot of time with him. And he was not like not able to move. He still had that energy. He still could get up, walk to the hall. We made sure that we have our meals together.
Hmm.
I think that was one
At
thing that
least
we
one
did.
meal in a
At
day.
least one meal
Yeah.
in a day together. We made sure that at least
Yeah.
one of us have our morning coffees or chais with
With
him,
him.
because that's the time of the day where he's the most active.
Active. Right.
At least we made sure that we make him a part of our celebrations. If if he's not come to where the celebrations are happening, they say that take the celebrations to him. So we tried doing that. We tried getting the celebrations to him. Anything to do, keep him happy. That was a balance that we had to bring in, and we kind of tried to
Managed
do
it
that.
all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, um, when we met in January, I remember, Antara, you mentioned that uh, caregiving can put its own stress on both of you. You both had to learn how to use machines which you were completely unfamiliar with. I
Right.
think you know more about oxygen concentrators and different kinds of oxygen concentrators. You know more about the power backup that's required. You know more about different kinds of nebulizers and different kinds of oxygen tubing and the kind of backups that you keep whenever he had to come for a hospital visit, thinking of, oh, it's going to take this much time in travel, this much time when we get there, this much time before we can get to a power source and plug in, and this is how long the battery will last. There were so many aspects of caregiving that you had to learn, which you were absolutely unfamiliar with. Um, and I know that there would have been a lot of anxiety and stress within yourself. So, how did you guys work through this with getting knowledge, learning about it, and also making sure that you were able to swap roles back and forth and hand over to each other so neither of you would get too exhausted at any one time?
So most of the knowledge that we received was from you, doctor. We must say. um, how to put the settings, how to use a particular machine, what should be the oxygen concentration level, the saturation level. All we had learned from you. Then internet, of course, and then we keep switching on machines because by the passage of time, he required more powerful machines. Like every 2 years, we had to change machines,
Mm, mm,
right? And when if I talk about the backup, we were always ready with 2 or 3 extra spare oxygen cylinders at home because we had had a flooding issue in the basement once. And though we have a separate inverter for him, we had a separate inverter for him, so that in case there's a power cut, so we can at least manage for 6 hours with the power back, because his machines consumed a lot of electricity. um, but there was this one incident when there was water in the basement, and both of us were sitting holding our heads. How are we going to take him to the hospital if in case the power doesn't comes, and we run out of the oxygen cylinders also. So yes, there are times that we were really exhausted, we were frustrated, we were excited, and we were restless
Mm.
of not understanding what to do next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clueless that, and he was always comfortable. Don't worry, it'll come. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Though he used to panic a lot at times, because
Yeah.
breathlessness is one thing none of us want to experience. Right?
Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
can't
Yes.
we can't hold our breath for 10 seconds. This man was suffering for almost 13 years.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
he used to
Yeah.
panic a lot, but when he understood that, oh, look at their faces, they are more stressed than me, he will just calm down and sit for some time and give us
Yeah.
all the strength he could, that, what, don't worry, we'll manage. And with God's grace and, his blessings, we were able to manage all that very beautifully. And, it's a blessing that such situations never came, that we ran out of
Yeah.
the backups that we have at home.
Yeah.
Just one more point I'd
Yeah.
like to add, Doctor. I mean, me, Antra, we might really feel that we've mastered this, we have, understood at what situation to do what. But to be very honest, nobody knows
Right.
the body better than the person
The person
himself,
himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think my dad has been played a huge role in making us understand how to tackle situations. He would immediately get to know when there's a change happening in his body. He would immediately get to know, I think my sugars are going down, I'm getting breathless, get me pure oxygen from the concentrator, get me pure oxygen. And then 8 out of 10 times he was right.
Yeah.
Uh, and he did recover, but most of it was what he would ask us to do. And there were some times where we would use our
Common sense and
experience.
experience.
So that's how it was. So
Mm.
yeah, so I think the person knows best what's happening in his body,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
teaches you a lot of things.
Yeah. Uh, I remember you telling me, Antara, that there were times when the two of you would fight, and it would be dad who would help you patch up.
Absolutely.
Um,
The-
there was great wisdom that he gave to you guys when you were going through difficulties, and I can imagine it was not easy for the two of you, because right from the time you guys got married, you had a very strong caregiving responsibility for both of you. So I'm just wondering, because there were so many relationships that were going through a lot of change, right? I mean, Karthik, you were moving into a caregiver role for your father, so there's a shift in that relationship that's happening. You were new in your marriage, and there's more strains that's coming. So there's a lot of play going back and forth. So how did you guys do this thing of finding the balance, uh, being able to accept anger, frustration that's there, and patching up? What was your way of coming together?
Dad.
Well, I mean, I can, as a caregiver, I've been a caregiver from the last 10, 12 odd years. There are a lot of sacrifices that we need to make. uh, you know we'll have to think 10 times before we plan a vacation. We'll have to think multiple times before, we probably want to go out for a
A
dinner.
dinner. Right.
We would probably want to, but the only thing that kept us going was that he loved both of us immensely, and
We loved each other.
we loved each other, and we still love each other. But yeah, but what really kept us going was, a common cause, that we know that the lifespan for anybody who's got critical illness is short, and it's really, and it's just fair that you keep that person happy. And that's what really kept us going. And yeah, I mean, we have had to make a lot of sacrifices, but
Hmm.
looking back at those sacrifices, we are actually happy and proud of ourselves that we made it. We have an entire life ahead. you know. So
Morning when we were speaking, doctor, that is when, I just could not control my tears. I just realized, oh God, there was so much happening, in these years which we just left. uh, you don't realize that those were such precious moments that you spent with that person, or you spent with each other, or you did not spend at all. And today when, morning, I was just thinking about all that. I was like, oh God, it's been 7 years I've known him, and now he's gone. But yeah, there's so many things that he's given us, and we had been able to balance it. See, it's very simple. We have to be focused, right? The primary focus is going to be the patient. So somewhere, even if I can say, if one person as a couple is, falling apart, the other can balance at that time,
yeah, that's
right? You
crucial.
know what, we can come back to it and we can talk. Let's just focus on this right now. And maybe that kept us going.
Did you guys do anything in particular just for yourselves, not just as a couple, but even as an individual for yourself? Did you have some kind of thing that you fell back on, whether it's something that you like music, or another question that I want to ask you, Karthik, is how did you work at maintaining that, this is dad and me and not caregiver and patient? What was your way of making sure that you had that kind of connection on a regular basis with dad?
Well, doctor, I mean, we've we have a lot of common interests. We have a lot of common topics to talk about, and me and my dad have stayed. Just me and my dad have stayed for a good amount of years. Mom was busy with her NGO, moving around, so that way, me and my dad probably share a very friendly
Friendly.
kind of a bond. uh, and see, caregiver. The word caregiver is probably something that that comes right from the time you're born. I mean, uh, they are your parents. It's not just parents. I mean, care is a very innate ability that comes to a person. Yes, sometimes, with people with critical illnesses, the intensity or the time that you need to give increases, probably fivefold, sixfold, tenfold. It depends on the situation. But it's just quantifying the care that you give on a daily life, on a daily basis. That's how I take it. That's how probably Antra also takes it. You care for your parents, you care for your loved ones, and you do a lot for them. It's just that during these times you have to, it quantifies many folds. It's just that that's the amount of time that you need to give and you need to spend. There are times where I've literally blown my head off. There are times where I have panicked probably 5 times more than how much he has. When his oxygen saturation level goes down, psychologically I feel my saturations are going down. It happens. When he sweats, when his
Yes.
BP goes down, and when he starts sweating, there's a point where I don't know what to do. He's saying, give me the pulse oximeter, give me the pulse monitor, give me the BP monitor, get me pure oxygen, connect me to pure oxygen. There are about 6 or 7 commands that he's giving at the same time. And and you tend to lose your cool at that time. And there have been situations where I've said, pa, stop, please. There have been such situations, I would not completely deny. But at that time, what I really do is just sit for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just close my eyes for a while, and probably listen to something, get back to normal, and then rush back. Call of Duty. That's how I can.
At times that routine can be really monotonous and it can be really frustrating. I don't know how many people agree to that, but if somebody is saying, no, I don't get worried, I don't get frustrated, no, it is not possible. You're a human being at the end of the day. You have your emotions, you have your emotional burst outs. So it's better to let it out. At times a person gets frustrated on the patient also, but it is very normal. If you can go back and apologize, I think even the person who's the patient will understand that they are also going through a rough phase because of us. The whole scenario, not because of the patient, but because of the whole scenario which is happening there.
This
So
is something that I've appreciated about all of you so much every time over the years. This honesty in acknowledging that We are not perfect. We will have emotional outbursts every now and then, but we all come back together. This is something that I've witnessed in your family multiple times, and I've always been very, very, it's always been wonderful to see you all come back together again. Um, and your father would share, like you said, Karthik, he was saying he had so many different interests. He would share music videos with me. He would share like old black and white photographs and sometimes all kinds of interesting articles and things. He's also someone I know that used to become sort of like an advisor to even the other people in the pulmonary rehab group that he used to go and do his rehab and physiotherapy with. Um, so I think one of the wonderful things that you managed to achieve was to make sure that his social circle continued to be active. I think he had friends coming in to meet him and he was staying connected in many ways. How about you guys? How were you also able to stay connected with your friends and things in this journey? And who are the support systems outside of family that you turn to in this long support in this long term, over the last 10 years?
Well, I can just say it is definitely the extended family members.
Hmm.
You know,
I know
my
your aunt is a big support.
my aunt, my
Aunt
cousin.
is a big support to mom and dad. I remember for many, many years. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and also I would say we have. My dad has also been a mentor to a lot of my friends.
Hmm.
He was a person who really loved social gatherings. He would speak to people. He loved speaking to people. So there are friends whom you can fall back upon.
Hmm.
Sure, we all have those special friends with us. I'm sure all of you would agree. And there's always one friend whom you probably go to, when you have a lot of things to complain, right? And that friend always does the magic of saying, "Bhai,
It's
main
okay.
hoon, it's fine," right? So
Yeah.
we've had those friends, but primarily, Dr. Bhatt, it's been extended family. It's been a couple of friends who've always helped us, supported us. There have been a lot of situations where we have really vented out to them. In fact, Dad knew that knew a lot of things. He knew the kind of sacrifices that we had to make. But he really, he respected it, and he said that okay, so I'm feeling a little better now. Why don't you guys go take a break? Go for a weekend and come back.
Yeah.
So he used to do that. But yeah, I mean, you need those people to vent out. So you have friends, you have family, extended family, and most of the times you also
Right.
took that role, Dr. Bhatt.
Must say.
I mean, I remember those long messages that you used to type. This is my situation. These are my ailments. This is how I'm feeling. What do I do?
Even before telling us.
Even before telling us, yeah. So yeah, so you always need people. You need that support externally also. Very, very important.
Thank you so much for sharing so much with us, Karthik and Antara. Again, as always, you're very generous in opening up to your experiences just so that others can learn from it. I would like to invite Bhavna to ask a few more questions that she and others on this group might have. And Karthik, Antara, and I will try and answer to the best that we can.
So cannot thank you enough for being here, all three of you. I have been very moved by what I have heard. Um, I think also to just simply bring in a medical practitioner and make that person such a member of your family is is another beautiful thing. I think looking at it like a team effort or looking at it like we are all partners in this and we can walk together so long as we can hold each other's hands is something that I take away. I'm very, one of the things that we are very keen at Caregiver Sati is to humanize the experience, is to not look at caregiving as this glorified, larger than life thing that it usually becomes. And all the difficulties are swept under the carpet. So I am actually very appreciative of the fact that you spoke about your human experience. the difficulties, the challenges, the frustrations, um, with so much love and compassion. So thank you for doing that. As you look back on your journeys and as you are talking to other people, um, what are some of the things that you wish you had, um, that could be signposts or guiding lights for people who are actively caregiving today?
Well, thanks, Bhavna, for that question. Well, couple of signposts, couple of guidelines that I would probably give is one. I would just have a sign that would say, the situation is never bigger than you. Situations can never be bigger than you. It's just a phase. You generally tend to come out of those situations. So that's one thing that kept on coming to my head. Whenever I would see those panic attacks, or
Hmm.
whenever I would see a lot of mood swings. These also create a lot of mood swings, not just for the caregiver, but also for the patient, or also for the person whom you're taking care of. And yeah, I mean, we're emotionally very strong. So that was one signpost that kept on coming in my head, that situations can never become bigger than the person. That's one.
Yeah.
Second is, you know um, there's no way in which you can be 100% calm. Not possible, because there's always a matter of uncertainty. There's always what's going to happen next, that's going on in your mind always. Did I miss something? There's a routine that we need to follow. Did I miss something? That question keeps coming in your mind. You really don't know what the other person is thinking of. You just subjected to the expressions that's on the face. I mean, what I could pick up is trying to be as transparent. Talk to him. Talk to the person that whom you're giving care to. Try to talk to them as much as possible. Try to understand what they are expecting. Talking is not harmful. It only gives you a way to care better, right?
Right.
So talk to the person as much as you can. Never assume or presume anything, because there's a lot of medical ailments that's going on, and a lot of mental ailments also that's going on. That combination gives you zero room to presume or assume anything. So as much as possible, be transparent. Speak to the person whom you're caring for, right? And third is just stay positive. Yes, oxygen saturation is just a number. If it goes down, it has to come back up.
Right.
Our science, medical science enables that. Well, if there are facts that people with critical ailments cannot live, there are also miracles where people have lived, uh, you know,
For a good amount of
for a
time.
good amount of time. So just be positive, have that hope. I think that'll keep you going.
And also, I feel that it is better to practically be informed and inform the patient what the current situation is, instead of hiding and playing around the bushes. You know, the more practical you are, the easier it is for
Well
you
said.
to accept, as well as it is easier for the patient to accept his medical condition and going forward for the treatment. At times people just panic just because they don't know what is going inside their body. So
That's
even with
true.
chronic illness, I feel that it is better to be informed and let the patient inform about whatever is going on.
Okay. Well, my only other question would be, what did you do to spiritually ground yourself during this journey?
We could not hear your
Can you
question
just
properly.
repeat that question, Bhavna, please? We couldn't hear the last part.
Sure.
Yeah.
I said, what did you do to spiritually ground yourself? Very often we can have questions like, why me? Why us? why are we going through this, whereas, no one else is? And those are spiritual questions, right? So what did you do to spiritually ground yourself?
So what we do is we look at somebody who is in even more worse situation than us. Whenever we think of, oh God, why we talk and we see, what, there is somebody who is in a terrible situation, and we are thankful that we have survived, or we are in this particular situation. We are not, even in a worse, we could have been in a worse situation than this. So thank God that, we are in a better position than the other person. That gives us a lot of strength.
And another thing that I'd like to add, Bhavna, is
So I
when
suppose,
yeah, please.
no, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
No, when the person when the person himself or herself is trying so hard, to make things fine, to make ends meet, to balance relationships and situations, uh, you know um, that's a huge confidence that a caregiver gets,
Agreed.
and that keeps the caregiver going. Yes, a lot of things really help us. We do meditate. Meditation really helps us. It brings a lot of uh, peace. I mean, from a spirituality point of view, yeah. I mean, you are the chosen one, but you're not the only one.
Right.
There are a lot of people, who are in your shoes, in the same boat, or probably in a much worse boat that you are in. So that's what keeps us going.
So beautifully said. I suppose the attitude of gratitude and what you said about, that recognize that there are others on a similar journey. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rajni.
Well, thank you so much, Karthik and Antara.
Can you hear me, Rajni?
Thanks to
Thanks,
you, ma'am.
thanks, doctor. Thank you so
I
much.
can hear you, Bhavna. Sorry, there seems to be a little lag. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah. But I have to say that ever since I first spoke with Dr. Rajni about this topic, she has been so clear that she wanted to talk to you and she wanted to invite you. And, she's been telling me about you. And I had formed this image and this picture of who you might be. And I have to say, I love that little moment when you said, we loved him and we love each other. And I suppose that is, to me, the essence of the challenges and the dynamics. So thank you for your time and insights.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have a few questions from some of our participants, and we are now going to address them. Those of you who have questions and may wish to ask them, I'm going to ask Dr. Rajni first, those that came through the registration. My daughter has acquired some form of insight into her health challenges, but it is not yet convincing enough. Our challenge as a family is how to operate from a place of hope and love and faith instead of fear.
That's it's a very, it's one of the most challenging things to work with chronic illness. And it's something that's a work in progress. So what we have to understand is that as a patient and as a caregiver, and I'll be very honest, even as a treating physician, we go through cycles of hope and then understanding and acceptance, and it goes up and down for everyone involved in the process. I think what really matters more than anything else is to have a really strong and a bond of a therapeutic relationship, which is a partnership. Um, when we say it's not convincing enough, that's probably because sometimes we have illnesses where in certain times we will feel very healthy and like everything is going okay, and then there's a dip again. So certain types of conditions which have relapsing remitting situations, we go through cyclic phases until it sort of settles down, and then we come to acceptance. um, when we talk about how do we operate from a place of hope and love and faith instead of fear, sometimes I think that it's nice to have an open conversation with everyone in the family about what is our worst fear. And when you know that you are going to be supported and held through that worst fear too, that's when hope and love and faith actually start rising more and more and more. If I have to say, in terms of when we talk about Mr. Iyer and Karthik and Antara, we had come to an understanding through multiple over the years that the last 1 year we all recognized that things were going down slowly. And the conversation slowly started becoming more about what he would want, what he would not want in when the event happened that his health would decline further. So we came to that place of acceptance not in one shot. It was multiple conversations. And that is something we have to accept. As human beings, we will go through those ebb and flow moments. As long as we are able to face those fears and recognize that we will be held through it, we will be supported through it, the fear starts going down and the hope starts rising more.
I absolutely love that response, which is, you need to have a conversation with your fear. Uh, Thank you for that. How can caregivers take care of themselves when they are suffering from pain? Do you have any home remedies?
I think it's very important for caregivers to take care of themselves. I myself have been a caregiver for brief periods of time with my parents. And I think it's extremely important as a caregiver to first take care of yourself. The typical airline statement that first put on your oxygen mask before you try to help anybody else. So I think no matter how busy you are as a caregiver, one has to take care of our own physical and mental health. And sometimes our lives are very busy as caregivers, but we can all try and find about 20 to 30 minutes. If you have only 30 minutes, then 20 minutes just to do some minimum physical exercise, like a walk or something. About 10 minutes for quiet meditation or music or something that helps your mind center itself, practicing gratitude, as Karthik and Antara said. When it comes to actual pain, I think it's very important that caregivers not ignore their medical problems. So if you have a pain which is a mild pain, a niggling pain, then that's something you can deal with home remedies. But if something is going on for 3, 4 days, then it's very important that you connect with your doctor as well and do that. And simple home remedies are the ones that, the adrak wali chai or having an ginger water with honey. Those are things that help soothe aches and pains. And simple paracetamol, things like that are things that we keep aside with us. But most importantly, take care of your own health first. A caregiver should have a regular doctor that they go to for a health check at least once a year. If you take care of yourself, you can take care of somebody else.
Beautifully said again. What to do when there is no acceptance of the disorder?
Oh, that's a hard one, isn't it? When there is no acceptance of the disorder, I think this happens very often with certain neurological and certain mental health disorders more than anything else. There's a lack of acceptance of the disorder. And I think this is one of the most difficult situations for a caregiver. And I think what ends up happening is we need to be kind to ourselves as that caregiver. You will have outbursts of anger and temper. So we need to build that support system, as Karthik was saying, that friend that you can go out and vent about all those crazy episodes with. There has to be an acceptance within ourselves about this is the situation. This is the best of acceptance and understanding and responsibility that the patient or the care receiver might get. And I have seen other patients go through this. For example, patients who have severe diabetes but who are willfully sometimes violating a diet or refusing medications. There are times that creates conflict. Um, and somewhere we have to help the caregiver come to understand that that's not coming from a place of spite or malice. It's coming because that person is also suffering. When we start understanding that it's not happening, sometimes that's what it feels like. I'm doing so much to take care of her, and she won't even listen to me this much,
Yeah.
right? So that is hard. We have to acknowledge our anger. We have to acknowledge our hurt self at that point, that I'm trying so hard to help and she's undoing it or he is undoing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have to be kind to ourselves when
Yeah.
there is not enough acceptance from the patient's side. You're doing
Yeah.
your best. Be kind
Yeah.
to yourself.
And that's the one linked to the next question as well, which is how to practice self care for emotional health. How would you practice self care for emotional health as a
Um,
caregiver?
as a caregiver, I feel so. I'm just going to share my tips as a caregiver for emotional health. And I'm not sure if, I mean, there's so many different things that people do, but I think it has to be prioritized. So one of the simple things is I like to put down 2 or 3 things that I know helps me to stay centered in a day. I have 4 things that are there that I know these 4 things help me. If I do 2 out of 4 on any day, I know that day can't go too bad, right?
Hmm.
So that's one of those things. And so sometimes it's like about not setting too hard a goal for oneself or too hard, setting targets that are unattainable. So if there are 5 things I needed to get done in a day, if I've got 2 out of 5 done, also it's fine. Don't be hard on yourself. That is very, very important. Prioritizing one's health is also important. So when there's a lot of guilt that people go through in caregiving, um, because there are times when it gets exhausting. Antara mentioned that it can get very monotonous and boring. She was very
Yeah.
I was so appreciative of the fact that she said that, because um,
Yeah.
it's not easy. And when it gets monotonous
It
and
can be
boring,
hard.
sometimes we
Yeah.
forget things. We have tasks and we don't go through all of them. It's all right. It's okay.
Yeah.
So emotional health, I think, has to be about setting attainable goals, making sure that you incorporate physical and mental and that spiritual health part. It doesn't have to be that, oh, that's another checklist to set. In a week, if you did these things once, you still manage to be in a fairly good balance.
There's a lovely comment which says also important to involve other key members of the family to participate equally in the caregiving process. Resentment
Yeah,
wears you down.
yeah. I think that's very important.
Communicate. Patients with the rest of the family don't expect. Caregivers also need caregivers, and caregivers need sathis. So, yes, engage, involve, enroll as many as possible. That one last question as a well wisher of we will ask some more, but as a well wisher of someone who is a primary caregiver, I wish to understand how to counsel when there is caregiver fatigue, especially when the caregiver is also aged and has his or her physical limitations.
I think
How do you counsel someone to recognize their limitations?
I think that's also something that we face quite often, especially in Bangalore. We have an aging population of patients along with an aging population of caregivers. Um, and caregiver fatigue is a very real thing. Um, I think what matters is that there are times that you might need respite. You might need someone to come and take over for a couple of days so that you can take care of your own health. Um, I know that's a luxury that not everyone has, because it's not everyone who has a large extended family who's available, whom you can trust with that caregiving to. But that's one of the ways that you get a little respite for a few days, which you can take to take care of yourself. Um, how do we counsel somebody about that? Is by making sure they are seen and heard. caregiver fatigue and all the stress and strain and pain of a caregiver is one of the most invisible things in healthcare. Very few people, I mean, I know that as a doctor, I started recognizing it only in the last few years. I don't think in my early years of practice, I recognized how important it was for me to acknowledge the experience of the caregiver who always came along with my patient. But even being seen and heard and acknowledged for all the efforts that one is doing to keep their loved one as healthy as possible, that helps a lot. And sometimes just checking in on that caregiver too. So I think even as doctors, what we can do is make sure that we check in on the caregiver who accompanies those patients, saying, "Are you okay? Have you had your health checks done?" So we need to sometimes remind them that they need to take care of themselves too.
Yeah.
Connectivity.
Um, I think I just like to add to that. I think sometimes for a well-wisher, it becomes such a need to tell the other person that, listen, you know, you need to slow down, or you need to do this better, or you need to recognize your boundaries. Please identify what you need. You know, take a moment and pause and say, what do you want to do in this? Are you concerned for that person? What's really going on for you? So can you express yourself to that person? So if there is a fear, you say with your expression, you say, like, if you're burning yourself, I have this fear about that.
Yeah.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you for a little bit. I lost the connection at that point.
No worries. I was saying that when you are a well-wisher or caregiver and you want to actually articulate to the caregiver that you know, you have limitations, instead of advising or instead of telling the other person that, you know, be mindful, recognize your limitations, it might be better to turn inwards and say, how is that impacting you? So you may
Yeah.
want to just come from, when I see you pushing yourself like this,
Yeah.
I fear, or
Yeah.
here's what's happening with me,
Yeah.
than advise the other
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. 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 Offering support and recognition rather than advice. You know, I think in one of the other things is that luckily we have strong community structures and friends around us. And when you know that someone's a caregiver who's fatigued, if you know what they like, you know, sending in their favorite treat as a home cooked treat is something you can do things to cheer up caregivers. When I was taking care of my mom and she was down with COVID, my sister's friend sent in a piping hot um, bowl of, you know, a container of rasam, which was a special rasam that she had made for us. And it was so thoughtful and sweet because it took the pressure off me. And I knew that there would be this perfect thing that would make my mom feel good right away. Sometimes it's very little touches that just make you feel like, I don't have to cook today. Or someone else has done this for me today. You know, so you feel cared for and the patient is cared for. These are the kind of ways in which communities come together to support caregivers. And that's been going on since time immemorial, I think, in our community.
No,
Food
absolutely.
has been our way of offering love and support.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine good piping hot bowl of rasam can be truly comfort at multiple levels.
Yes.
I'm going to stop the live right now, and